Welcome to this week's whole week Costa. It's been 8 months since our last podcast, and we decided to talk about Star Wars Clone Wars
We from now on will be talking about Star Wars for the foreseeable future.
and other stuff because I have a feeling like other stuff will get thrown in.
Probably, but if you're expect to come here for a lot of Star Wars content, if you're a Star Wars fan, join right now.
Well, Star Wars Clone Wars, because it's a really good show, and I started years too late, I think. So catching up on 7 seasons is going to be very difficult. And then Star Wars Clone Wars, and then Star Wars Rebels, which is also, I hear, really good.
I think it's all a really relevant topic, though, because the 7th season of Clone Wars just came out pretty recently. So I feel like people are still looking for Clone Wars content. I mean, that's what always happens to me. You know, you finish a series and you want to watch as much as you can about it. And so if we can give a new look at it, I think there's some people that want to still talk about it, basically.
So what I like so far, and what I've read about Clone Wars, is a lot of people don't like the first couple seasons because a lot of the episodes are one-off episodes. But towards the end of the first season, it starts building towards a actual relevant story arc. So we know the story of the Clone Wars, which is actually one of my favorite Star Wars movies. Clone Wars, I like the prequel. I like the prequels. Well, I like Clone Wars and uh Revenge of no, whatever the third prequel is. So
yeah, Revenge of the Sith. I think you're right.
Yeah. So I like those two. The first one, not that good. But Qui-Gon is an awesome character in it. He's the best character.
See, I was kind of thinking with the first one, I tried to have the kids watch it because I was thinking like having the little kid Anakin, maybe they would get more into it because for whatever reason these kids aren't big Star Wars fans, no matter how hard we try to get them into it.
Yeah. I just think the Anakin thing's terrible, and the Jar Jar Binks stepping in poop and everything, like it's terrible, and it ruined it for a lot of actual Star Wars fans. And I remember watching it, and I was like 11 or 12, and I'm like, this is silly. But then Clone Wars came out, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is way better. I mean, I wish Qui-Gon was in it because that would have been cool. But the original trilogy never actually mentions Qui-Gon, so I guess he had to die off.
Yeah, but we can debate this in the distant future. But did Jar Jar Binks ruin the movies, or did having a grumpy Luke Skywalker, even though Luke Skywalker in the original trilogy was this beacon of hope, to things like that ruin the series? Is Jar Jar so bad in retrospect?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, probably.
Have you watched more than 2 episodes of Clone Wars? He's terrible.
I haven't yet. I've only watched the first 2 episodes. Well, actually, I watched the first 5. So my Clone Wars thing. So I keep wanting to get into this because I watched the first episode like a year ago and it was, wow, that was awesome. And then I didn't watch anything else. And then I watched 5 episodes like a couple months ago. And then we decided we're going to do this. So I just rewatched 2 more episodes. And I honestly don't remember what happens in the other 3. So it's going to be a surprise for me when we talk about them next week.
Well, there are parts where the clone troopers send Jar Jar into these death missions because they know that Jar Jar is going to mess their stuff up so bad that it's actually going to be a bonus for them.
That's kind of messed up, though.
Yeah, but he's useless. So anyway, well, what did you think about the first 2 episodes, which are actually like kind of they are really one-off episodes. Like it's a day in the life of Yoda and then a day in the life of Anakin.
See, I think that's great though, because I think it just introduces us to these characters. So it's like a 1 episode introduction to these characters. I mean, we've never seen Yoda in depth in the way you see him in this episode, if you just watch the movies before. So I think, just to give us a little more insight into these characters before we get into these big overarching stories makes a lot of sense. Apparently too, that wasn't really supposed to be the first episode, and after production, they changed the order around.
Yeah. I do like, they show for the first time, they show, Yoda as the diplomat. Like, they wanna show him as a diplomat, but they show him also as this badass, like, strategist and warrior.
Yeah, I think a lot of important stuff happens in this first episode. I mean, I think one of the most important scenes is where he's talking to the clone troopers, and he says to them, even though you're all clones, DNA wise, you're all different in the Force, since the Force flows through everyone and is a unique imprint on everyone. Because I feel like that really sets us up for the series, because we're talking about the Clone Wars. We're literally going to see a shit ton of clones. So I think establishing that in the first episode was super important. That okay, these guys all look the same, but they're different people. They're different beings in the Force. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I watched, last night or yesterday, I watched a movie, and it stars the guy who was the model for Jango Fett and, Commander Cody and all the clones. And so I watched that movie, and he was like the character was actually like a real badass, like with guns and everything. So I thought that was
Makes
pretty
sense.
cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a great juxtaposition between the two episodes too. I thought there was really two good episodes to start with, because you have first just, I mean, even though they're both kind of one-off things, like the first episode is just a really personal on the ground battle, and then the second one we go to, it's more of a, the second one does get into more overarching stuff, because I mean, I'm assuming that the malevolence is going to be a big story plot, at least for the first season. Chasing it down, what's going to happen with it, what's happening with the separatists now. So it introduces us to all that stuff. After the first episode just showed us sort of like the world a little bit, the second one does start to show us some of the plot, and that's a little bit bigger scale episode. Even though it's just a rescue mission, it introduces a lot of other things that I'm assuming are going to be important going forward.
One of the things this show does really well is they show the different planets and systems. You don't just get stuck on, Tatooine, Naboo, Mustafar. Like, you don't get stuck on the same planets over and over again. They go to different systems to rescue people or have battles or have diplomatic, you know, conversations. So it sets up more of a Star Wars, uh, you know, world building. And I don't think it's canon anymore. I think it's just under Legends, but still think it's really good.
No, this is canon.
Okay.
There was an original, and I didn't know this until I was looking it up, honestly. So I'm going to sound real neckbeardy, even though I had to shave my beard for work again last week, which is pretty terrible. The kids keep telling me how stupid I look. But
Don't worry, you look stupid regardless.
but there was a Clone Wars series in the early 2000s that is now Legends, that was basically overwritten by this Clone Wars series. This is the official one now. The other thing about too is when to watch the movie, because apparently when this was originally released, the Clone Wars movie was the first thing, and then they released the episodes. So I guess at some point we should go back and watch the movie. Although looking up like watch list, it seems like it's not totally in chronological order, the first episode of the series, and the movie fits in there somewhere, even though release wise the movie actually came first.
Right. And there are Clone War movies within the Clone War, I guess it's Clone War specials. Like, there's one movie, it's like between like episode 16 and 21. So you have to watch that in between those episodes. It's
Okay.
like an hour and a
Yeah.
half like special.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we'll just have to figure out. That's honestly kind of what I like about this. So if anyone listened to our like old podcasts before this, like super extended break between me getting married and then all the coronavirus stuff and all, we were doing movies, and part of the problem with that was just honestly it was hard to keep track of what movie we were watching, because we were going off this list that there was a different list for it every year, and there was a couple times I messed up what movie we were trying to watch, and then some of the movies were hard to get. This is just like, okay, log into Disney Plus, watch the next episode. Like, so this is much, much easier. And there's also no fucking 3-hour epics. I feel like I'll try to curse less in this podcast, but there's also no 3-hour epics in this. Like some of these old movies we watched that were just a bear, like to like, oh, when am I going to find time to do this?
Yeah. It was, and then some of the movies were just boring.
Yeah,
Where, Clone Wars, you could just watch, 3 20-minute episodes, and like that's an hour, and you're like, wow, I got like 3 episodes down, and it's actually like it's pretty intriguing. Sometimes I see myself, and I watched like 7 episodes one day, and I was like, oh, I better get up and do stuff.
Yeah, no, that's what happened to me. So the last time I tried to watch it, I watched 5 episodes in a row. That's sort of what happened to me. I had like other stuff to do, and then I just kept going. So I feel like once I really get into it, the challenge is going to be not to watch too many episodes in a week. So we have continuing content to talk about. But yeah, back to the episode stuff though. So honestly, I mean, I think what I said about the clone troopers was really my takeaway from the first episode. I mean, with these 22-minute episodes, I mean, we can get into the plot and stuff, but I think people will watch them already for the most part. I think there's going to be honestly a few takeaway things from each episode, and that I think is my, that each of the clone troopers is unique in the Force is my big takeaway from the first episode, because like I said, we already sort of knew Yoda. You had some good points about him, though. It showed him in a little bit different light. But honestly, not too much else happened in that first episode.
You get introduced to Vantress. I think that's her name.
True. I guess. Yeah. I guess only watching the first 2, I didn't pay too much attention to her. I'm assuming she is more important later. I'm also curious.
Yeah, she comes back.
I'm also curious if anyone can comment about the clone troopers, because after watching 2 episodes, I've now met 6 clone troopers whose names I don't remember. So my question is, does that stop? Are these people really fleshed out characters going forward? Which I'm assuming from the first episode they are. But to me, it's just 6 clone troopers right now. I'm curious when we get a little further in, if their names will be as familiar to us watching them as Anakin and Yoda and everybody else.
Some of them are, and some of the episodes just focus on just the clone troopers, and then some focus on the Jedi and clone troopers, and some just focus on the Jedi. So it really depends on the episode. Like when they say like it's Clone Wars, it really focuses on the entire Clone War. It doesn't follow Anakin around the entire time.
Yeah. And then I think the second episode is really important too, because I mean it gives us a first sort of like, not only an introduction to Ahsoka, but it gives us and some of her personality. And obviously it's interesting because Anakin was such an upstart and a little bit, didn't really follow the rules or respect his elders, and that's part of what led him towards his path that he goes down. So I'm curious if Ahsoka will be a similar character in the future, because she has a lot of the same personality traits that he has in the movies, that obviously that came out before this. So it's interesting to see him as more of the elder statesman in this, and her as more of the upstart like we see him in the movies.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen, just through advertisements of Rebels or whatever, she becomes a big character in this show as well as Rebels.
Yeah, I'm really interested in her character arc. And again, this is from I haven't watched either series. This is sort of a blind watch through, I guess, for me. I've seen all the movies obviously, and some other random stuff, but I haven't watched any of the external series like this before. So you should get, I think, hopefully a little bit different perspective than someone who is someone who has only lived Star Wars for the last 20 years of their life, for example. So hopefully we can be a little bit of a unique Star Wars channel through this. Um, but yeah, as far as what the other thing I think this tells us about Anakin, which is interesting, is that he is a good tactician. Because he is diplomatic. Tells Ahsoka he planned to do this rescue mission all along, but also realizes that taking his whole fleet with him to put them in danger would be a really bad idea. So he agrees, plays both sides, agrees with what the council tells him to do, realizes, is smart enough and mature enough to realize that that would be a bad idea to take his whole fleet on a rescue mission, but is also brash enough to think he can just do it himself. And I don't know if he doesn't realize his importance in everything, or if he just, is that overconfident that he thinks nothing bad's going to happen to him going on this rescue mission. But obviously his senses about it are correct, that he is able to pull through without putting his fleet in danger. So we see he is a good tactician. Obviously, we already know he is a great pilot. So we get introduced and reintroduced to some of that stuff from him in this episode. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And um, I do like how we get introduced to more Jedi as well. So it kind of puts a sense. I mean, I watched Order 66, but it put there's a sense of fear. Like you don't understand. Like, is this guy gonna die here or is he not? Because you don't see every Jedi in the Star Wars movie get killed during Order 66. So, if you see them all get killed, it brings a lot of the tension of the show out. Like, oh no, I feel, you know, I saw him. He doesn't die until Attack of the Clones, and then but so there's a lot of tension because you're introduced to all these new um, Jedi, so that helps build tension because you don't know when or if they're gonna die because so far, from what I've seen from the you know episodes that I watched, the Jedi do die in this show, and some do live, so that also helps the show build tension. Plus, Obi-Wan is one of the best characters ever.
Yeah, across all media platforms that the characters in, basically. I would agree with that. So I'm curious to see more of it. I'm assuming we'll see more of him and Anakin's relationship. That was sort of the best criticism that I've seen of the prequels, is that why wasn't the second movie just a buddy cop movie between Anakin and Obi-Wan, so that his fall in episode 3 is more powerful. But I mean, I guess that's what the Clone Wars event, I mean, sort of is. We get to we get these two people's relationship fleshed out. So I'm curious. That's another thing I'm curious to see for this for the series. But the other thing I think is big in this episode is just like I said, the fact that there's a big victory in this episode, because obviously it's sort of a 20-minute normal TV episode. So I mean, probably most episodes the good guys are going to win in the end, and obviously Yoda prevails in the first episode. But I mean, he establishes a base on a distant planet. That doesn't really have much meaning for us. But for this, you can see how even not knowing much about the overall story, you can see that the malevolence is a real threat, and it's something that's occupying our characters, and sort of in the front of their minds at this point. So to get information, so not only save the day and save Plo Koon, but to get information on that, feels like a really big tangible victory for the Empire in general. And honestly, it's not really counterbalanced by anything, because I mean, Plo Koon did lose his fleet, but we don't really have any reference frame for that. We don't know how many ships he had, how many ships the Empire has in general. We don't know if that's a big deal or not, but we do know that finding the information about the ion cannon is a big deal. So it's a big tangible victory in this, already in the second episode. So it's it gives you a lot of momentum going forward, basically.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to talking more about the episodes. I think these are your the first one's they're all definitely kind of like one-offs. So I'm looking forward to learning more about the arcs and the overall story. So I think that comes more in, but from what I read, like the end of season 2, season 3. So I mean, there's 7 seasons, so there's a lot more to watch.
A lot of podcasts to be done.
Yeah.
But I think that's it.
Well, I think that
I think it's based a lot of value for these episodes. Excited about the direction here. I definitely want to talk about the Clone Wars for a long time, and then maybe mix in some other Star Wars content, and then obviously, and then I feel like this allows us to mix in just some random stuff week to week too, well, not week to week, but like here and there, just to have a little downtime. And talk about our lives too, so we can mix some of those in the future too. I think would be good without having to have a super rigid structure,
Yep. So, thanks for listening to our first Star Wars episode. For Kevin, I'm Jay. Have a good day.
I don't know if we should rhyme at the end though.